Your biggest emotional reactions usually have far less to do with what just happened and far more to do with what your nervous system believes it means. If you don't understand that, you'll keep fighting the person you love instead of the fear that's actually driving your reaction. So today, I'm going to show you why small moments create such big emotional reactions and how to finally change them. So I see this every single week with my clients. A couple comes in, and after another argument, one partner says, all I did was ask if we could talk later, if we could have a conversation tonight. And the other partner says, but when you said that, I felt like you were leaving me. And the first partner looks completely baffled and confused because that's not even close to what they meant. Neither person is lying. One is talking about behavior. The other is talking about biology. Because our nervous system doesn't ask what happened. It asks, am I safe? And here's the problem. If your nervous system learned years ago that distance meant rejection and that silence meant punishment or conflict meant abandonment, criticism meant you weren't enough, then your brain doesn't experience today's moment as today's moment. It experiences today's moment through a totally different lens that's yesterday's wounds. That's why a 5-second interaction can create a 5-hour emotional reaction. Not because you're dramatic, and this is not because you're broken, but because your nervous system is trying to protect you from the pain that it has experienced before. The problem is protection and reality aren't always the same thing. I'm Jenn Pinkerton, and I'm a psychotherapist and a connection expert. I help people stop repeating the same painful relationship patterns and instead start building a healthier, more connected relationship where they can truly thrive. So today I'm going to explain exactly what's happening inside your nervous system when you're triggered and why your reactions can feel so automatic and so big, and most importantly, how to begin responding from your healthiest self instead of your deepest wounds. So because once you understand what's actually happening inside your brain and inside your body, then everything about your relationship can start making more sense. So your nervous system doesn't react to reality. It reacts to meaning. And this is one of the most important concepts that I teach my clients. Your nervous system is constantly asking one question: am I safe? Not, is this logical? Not, is this relationship healthy? Not, what are the facts? Its first job is survival. And that means before your thinking brain ever gets involved, your nervous system has already scanned the situation. It's already compared it to every emotionally significant experience that you've ever had. It's already decided whether this moment feels familiar. And if it feels familiar to pain, then it responds. So I want you to think about how quickly this happens. Your partner says one sentence, and before you've consciously processed the words, your chest is tight, your breathing is shallow and it changes, your muscles are tense, your stomach may feel sick, your thoughts speed up, your emotions intensify, and that's because your nervous system has already decided that we have been here before. This is familiar to me. But here's what's so fascinating. Sometimes you've never actually even been here before. You've simply been somewhere that felt emotionally similar. Maybe your partner asked for space, but your nervous system remembers an emotional abandonment. Maybe your partner forgets something important to you, and your nervous system remembers feeling invisible as a child. Maybe they sound frustrated, and your nervous system remembers growing up with unpredictable anger. So notice something. The trigger isn't creating the reaction. It's activating an emotional memory. So your nervous system isn't responding to the present. It's responding to the past that that present reminds it of. And that is why two people can experience the exact same event and have completely different emotional reactions. One person hears, "Can we talk later?" and thinks, "Absolutely." Another hears, "Can we talk later?" and immediately thinks, "They're leaving me. This is over." The words were identical. The nervous systems were not. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, "This is exactly what happens to me," I want you to take my free Pinkerton Relational Health Index, or PRHI, quiz. It's going to help you identify the strengths in your relationship, the areas that may be keeping you stuck, and the patterns that your nervous system may be repeating without you ever even realizing it. And the link is below in the description. So because awareness is always the first step towards transformation, your trigger is a protective response, not a character flaw. And now that you understand your nervous system is reacting to what something means, let's talk about what actually happens inside your body the moment you're triggered. Because once you understand this, you're going to stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" And instead, you're going to start asking, "What is my nervous system trying to protect me from?" And the moment your brain detects what it believes is a threat, whether that threat is physical or emotional, it immediately shifts gears. It shifts from connection mode into protection mode. And notice I said believes. Your nervous system doesn't wait to determine if this threat is real. It asks only one question: does this feel familiar? And if the answer is yes, it's going to move into survival. That's why a text message can trigger the same biological response as physical danger. Your heart rate increases, your breathing changes, your muscles are tightened, your stress hormones are completely activated and released. Blood flow shifts away from the thinking part of your brain and towards the actual part that's responsible for survival. So this is why during conflict, people often say, I don't even know what came over me. I didn't know what I was saying. That's not even what I wanted to say. Or I knew I shouldn't react like that, but I couldn't stop because your nervous system had already taken over. You aren't responding from your healthiest self. You're responding from your survival self. And your survival strategy isn't random. This is one of the biggest misconceptions, that this idea that everyone reacts to threat the same way. We don't. Most people have one or two survival responses that become their default. You may have heard of these before: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So let's talk about what they actually look like inside relationships. Fight doesn't always look like yelling or raging. Sometimes it does. Sometimes that's exactly what it is. But sometimes it looks like just becoming defensive, trying to prove your point, interrupting, correcting your partner, needing the last word, criticizing, becoming sarcastic or sardonic. Your nervous system isn't thinking, "How can I destroy this relationship?" It's thinking, "If I can gain control, I'm going to feel safe." The next one is flight, and flight doesn't necessarily mean leaving the relationship. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it means leaving emotionally, or even leaving the room, or changing the subject, working longer hours, scrolling your phone, avoiding a difficult conversation, staying so busy so you don't have to feel, keeping yourself constant motion, so many activities, because your nervous system believes distance creates safety. Now, freeze often confuses couples the most, because this is the partner who suddenly says, "I don't know." They just stop talking. Their mind goes blank. They can't think. They're numb. They can't access words. And their partner thinks, "Well, you obviously don't care." But inside, the nervous system has simply shut everything down to survive. They're not refusing to respond. They're temporarily unable to respond. And that is a huge difference. Fawn is one of the least understood. This is the people-pleasing one. This is the person who immediately apologizes, even when they haven't done anything wrong. This is the person who's going to fix and accommodate and adjust. They say, it's okay, whatever you want. Just Don't worry about it. I'll be fine. They become the peacekeeper, the fixer, the people pleaser, because somewhere along the way, their nervous system learned if I can keep everyone else happy, then I'll stay emotionally safe. And none of these responses are going to make you bad. So here's what I want you to hear. Fight is not bad. Flight is not bad. Freeze is not bad. Fawn is not bad. They're all brilliant adaptations. And at one point in your life, they probably protected you. Maybe fighting even helped you survive a chaotic home. Maybe freezing kept you from making things so much worse. And maybe people-pleasing protected you from conflict. So maybe withdrawing helped you avoid emotional pain. The problem isn't that your nervous system learned these responses. The problem is it never learned when it was safe to stop using them. They helped you survive once and now they're maladaptive. And that's why your loving partner sometimes gets treated like the people who hurt you. Not because your partner is the same, not at all, but because your nervous system hasn't learned the difference yet. And this can change everything. So think about what this means. Instead of saying, why am I like this? You can begin asking, what is my nervous system trying to protect? Instead of criticizing yourself, I want you to become very curious. And instead of judging your partner, I want you to begin recognizing that they may also be reacting from their survival. Now, this doesn't excuse hurtful behavior. We still have the power rules and things I've talked about that we can and can't do, but it does explain it. And understanding always gives us more options than shame ever will, because you cannot regulate a nervous system that you keep attacking. And the path forward isn't more self-criticism. It's more self-awareness. And awareness creates choice. So how do you respond instead of react? This question is going to become a really big one. What do I actually do when I'm triggered? Because understanding your nervous system is helpful, but understanding alone doesn't change your relationship. Practice does. Patience does. Here's what I teach every client who's going to walk in my door, or every client I'm online with. The goal is not to stop getting triggered. That's actually impossible. So I'm going to say it one more time again, because social media really confused people about this and triggering. The goal is not to become someone who never gets triggered. You're human. That's part of the human condition. And your nervous system is going to notice danger. That's its job. You can't change that. The goal is to recognize that you're triggered before your trigger starts making decisions for you. And that's where your power lives. Not before the trigger, not after the argument, but in the pause between what happened and what you do about it. And that's why I call it power in the pause, because that pause is where your healthiest self gets an opportunity to come back online. So step one, notice your body before you believe your thoughts. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is believing every thought they have while they're emotionally activated. So think about that. Have you ever had thoughts like, they don't love me, or we're never going to make it. They always do this. I'm done. And then the next day, after you've calmed down, you don't even agree with your own thoughts. You can't believe you even said all that. And why? Because your nervous system was writing the story, not your healthiest self. So instead of asking yourself, what am I thinking? Start asking, what is my body doing? Is my chest tight? What is my tell? Is my heart racing? Are my shoulders tense? Am I fisting? Is my stomach in knots? Am I hot? Am I flustered? Can you feel your breathing getting shallow? Those are signs that your nervous system, not your wisdom, is driving. And your body always knows before your mind catches up. That's why awareness begins in the body. So step two, I want you to name that trigger. So ask yourself, what actually happened? Not what do I think it means, just what happened? For example, your partner forgot to text you. That's what happened. Your story in your head might be, I'm not important. I don't matter to them. But those are two different things. Or your partner asks for some space after an argument. That's what happened. But the story in your head becomes, they're leaving me. This relationship is over. Again, those are two different things. One is reality and one is interpretation. Learning to separate those two may be one of the most life-changing skills you'll ever develop. So now we're on step 3. Become curious. Instead of certain. This might be my favorite question in the entire process. Instead of asking, why would they do this to me? Ask what else could be true. Can two things be true at the same time? Maybe they're exhausted. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they're distracted. Maybe they're scared too. Maybe they have their own story in their head. Maybe they have absolutely no idea that my nervous system just interpreted that moment as rejection. Curiosity slows certainty, and certainty is usually what fuels conflict. Because once we become certain about someone else's intentions, we stop asking questions. We stop listening. We stop learning. And curiosity reopens the relationship. So step 4, go to the feeling. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see couples make. They spend 30 minutes arguing, discussing this event, instead of talking about the feeling underneath it. Remember, your partner isn't reacting to the dishes or the text message or being 5 minutes late. They're reacting to what their nervous system believes that moment means. So instead of saying, you never text me back, try saying, when I didn't hear from you, I noticed I started feeling unimportant. Also, instead of, you're always on your phone, try this. When we're talking and I don't feel like I have your attention, I notice I start feeling disconnected. So do you hear the difference between those two? One of them creates defensiveness and you're ready to argue the point. The other creates understanding and curiosity. Go to the feeling because feelings create connection. Facts create arguments. The goal isn't to win. The goal isn't to prove you were right. The goal isn't to convince your partner that your interpretation is correct. The goal is to help your partner understand your experience while also staying curious about theirs. That's emotional maturity. That's nervous system regulation. And that's how trust is built. Not by never getting triggered. We're all going to get triggered. But by learning how to return to one another after you do. I want to leave you with one thought. The next time you get triggered, don't immediately ask, what's wrong with me? Instead, ask, what is my nervous system trying to protect? Because that one question is going to change everything. It replaces shame with compassion. It replaces judgment with curiosity. It replaces reactivity with awareness. And awareness is where every healthy relationship begins. So if today's video helped you understand yourself maybe a little better, I would love for you to subscribe because every week I am building on these concepts together. And if you know someone who constantly says, I don't know why I did that, or I don't know why I'm always overreacting, or I wish I could stay calm during conflict, then share this video with them because it might completely change the way they understand themselves. And in the next video, we're going to tackle one of the biggest questions I get from clients. The question is, how do you know if you're emotionally safe in your relationship? Or you've simply become accustomed to this emotional neglect. That distinction changes everything. Because many people, they believe that they're asking for too much. They believe they're too much. When in reality, what if they've been surviving on far too little? You're not going to want to miss that one. So I will see you in the next video.